Hmm? I mean, it was such a beautiful slide. It would be nice to have it. Well, I think that would probably be. Okay. Are we operational here? Okay, great. Can everybody hear me? All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. And it's my pleasure to kick this session off. It's also my pleasure to kick off my last session. And we've saved the best for last. So I'm Eric Schwab, and I am a senior vice president at Environmental Defense Fund, where I lead the portfolio that we reference as People and Nature, which includes fisheries and oceans, all the way through agriculture to food systems to natural climate solutions. And there are lots of interactions between all of those disciplines and the people who depend upon them. So EDF is an organization. We're a nonprofit that is focused on global action for climate in all of its manifestations. That's driving climate solutions toward energy transformation and addressing greenhouse gases. But it's also about helping people to thrive in places around the world in the face of the climate change that they are already being experienced. And there is no place where that is more evident than in coastal and ocean systems. And we're going to hear a little bit more about that from Rashid. But needless to say, and when I first came to EDF, I ran the oceans program. That was my primary responsibility. And I come from a long history of fisheries work in states in the U.S., heading the National Marine Fisheries Service under the Obama administration, and working in fisheries management in lots of different contexts. So I'm really excited, Rashid, and your economic concept really resonates for me. We love fish at EDF, and this may sound strange to you, but indeed, fish for many people around the world are a more valuable resource than diamonds, and that's not and maybe you're going to speak specifically to that point, Rashid, but it's for people who depend upon this for livelihoods and nutrition. You can't eat diamonds, right? We've been here, EDF, with other partners over the course of the last 2 weeks, among other things, talking about the importance of aquatic foods, because they are disproportionately important to people in some of our most vulnerable coastal communities around the world. And so they also, by the way, and this is maybe a little bit of a side message with respect to the session, aquatic foods are fish are the most carbon efficient animal protein we produce, and shellfish and seaweed and some other fishery resources like those, or aquatic food resources like those, are often nature positive. So shellfish and seaweeds can be restorative to coastal communities. So again, this is something that comes, close to home for this. So what we're going to do here today is we're going to first hear from Dr. Sumaila, who's going to present on his research and his writings. Then we're going to hear from Rebecca Hubbard, who is the director of the High Seas Alliance, and Dr. Professor William Chung from University of British Columbia. And I'll let you explain more about your portfolio there at UBC when you come to the stage. So we'll bring Rashid to the stage. He'll present. Then we'll bring our two panelists along with Rashid to each give a few minutes of reaction. And then hopefully we'll have plenty of time, if we all stay on schedule, to open it up to question and answer and further discussion with you, the audience. So without any further preamble, Rashid, it's a pleasure to have you with us. I've heard you already a couple of times here in Dubai, and I'm excited to hear you again. Thank you. All right.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Eric, for the introduction, and thanks to EDF. Actually, this thing is happening because of EDF. It's a proposal that EDF put across to COP28. The committee, Pedro, is not here. He works for Eric, and he helped to put this up. So thank you for that. And as you can see, we have other supporters, Donna's philanthropy. She supported. Actually, that is her bag. If you know, badge. She gave me the badge to come here, and then Pew funded me to come here, paid the air ticket and so on. So, thank you all. William is my director, so UBC is obviously on board. Okay. So today we're going to talk about fish and how valuable fish, as Eric said, to people and to all of us actually. And this is based on my recent thing. This guy taught me how to do this. Yeah. This is based on our work and summarizing the Infinity Fish book, which is the title of this session. So the motivation for all that I do and my colleagues, I think many of you in this room, is exactly this picture summarizes a lot that is going on. At the top there, we have what Daniel Pauly has characterized as fishing down the marine food web. You know, we take it when we start fishing in a water body, we take the big fish, the most valuable fish, we go to the next one and the next one. And according to him, before we know, we end up with just jellyfish or mud, as you would say, right? So that's that. And it's not only that. You look at the bottom there, you see the habitat is also being impacted if you use bottom trawlers, right? So we are truncating the whole ecosystem. So that's the first thing. And then the big one, climate change, obviously, which is the topic of this, and I'll end up with that. Then you have marine debris, the plastic, and all the things that we throw out that goes into the ocean, right? The oil spill. So there's so much stress on the ocean and life in the ocean. And that motivates what I do, me and my colleagues and students and collaborators around the world. And all of this, again, you know, Daniel issued a book called Vanishing Fish, I think in 2019, which characterizes all of these things happening. And so later you see, without talking to each other, I came up with Infinity Fish. So he says, fish is vanishing. I say, hey, fish can also grow. And that is we kind of tee on each other. So why do we care so much about the ocean and the fish? Biodiversity is important. Many of us do care. We feel that the whole Earth system has a right to exist. We don't have the right to take down things and destroy nature, which is given to us by nature, right? So, but the other reason, and that's very important, is that when we mess up nature, we actually messing up ourselves. Ultimately, it's the people, right? If your city gets flooded, you think the water cares? No. It's you who has to almost be like fish. You have to learn how to get on a boat from your own house. And you've seen pictures of this. So when we take down the fish, ultimately it's the people that we hit. So this guy is saying, is that all the shrimp I get? And I go all over. The last one was in Malaysia. We went to the fishing port, and this woman is sitting trying to sell fish. I took out my camera to snap her and her fish, and I couldn't bring myself to do it. Little fish, a few of them. It was so pathetic, right? The fishers told me we used to go a day and fill half of our boat. Now we go for a week. We can get a tenth for half of what we used to get. So that's the consequences of on people. And the lady down there, that is environmental refugees that is increasing. So you know what? People are people everywhere. If conditions are tough in one place, people move. They don't sit down to die, right? So you have forced migration, you know. Europeans know this, right? You have West Africans, the fish is gone. What do? You got to keep going. They jump on rickety boats. Half of them sink and die with our hearts joining them. And then the rest go to Europe with all the social and economic. So we all have the obligation to help make this thing work. We have to make life livable everywhere where people live. Otherwise, they're not going to sit down and die. No. And this is not a Mexican thing or anything. And so that is the message that comes out of here, and it shows or an African thing I should add. So this takes us to Infinity Fish. That's a beautiful cover, and this is real. I have one copy here, of the book, and I'm going to make this more lively. My colleagues here will evaluate. The one with the best question will get this copy to take home. Yeah. So get ready, And it's not cheap. I'm so unhappy with the price actually. I told them why over $150? Why sell this for $20 and people will get the copy? So the competition is a hard one. Okay, yeah. All right. So that's Infinity Fish, and I actually this idea came to me in Namibia. I was asked to come and give a talk at National Fisheries Day. And if you know Namibia, two things are really important: natural resources, diamonds and fish. Now, they're always at each other's throat because the diamond takes place offshore also. So there's competition. So I land there, I got up like this, and I go and say, one of the things I've come to tell you today is that fish is more valuable than diamond. Oh my gosh, the room went ballistic, right? How is that possible? So I had two explanations. Number one, fish is renewable, right? Fish is renewable. If we manage our fisheries wisely, sustainably, they can continue to feed us good protein, Eric has just said, feed us forever, to infinity, right? And mathematically, anything that gives you benefit, even if it is small, $1 a day, if you sum it to infinity, what will be the answer? Infinity benefit. Therefore, Infinity Fish, That's where the title came from. Now, let's talk about diamond. Don't believe the marketeers who tell you diamond is forever. Diamond is not forever. No, if you dig 1 ton of diamond today, you're not going tomorrow to dig the same. No, it's gone forever, So that's the second reason. And then there were 3 ministers of fisheries, just like you are sitting looking at me thinking, who is this crazy guy? And I said, I know why you are thinking, you guys. You are saying, but we can sell our diamond, get the money, and invest it, and that will give us a flow of benefit too. I said, you know what? I know all of you are running deficits. You never save a penny. So I better have my fish for sure than count on you investing this money, right? So I nailed that one there. Now, the other reason is that actually fish is valuable to many, diamond to a few. And I think that is important. The coastal people, like you said, Eric, this is, in West Africa, some people, that's the only animal protein they will have to eat. In Southeast Asia, parts of Latin America. So this is more than just the dollars. It's actually lives and livelihoods, right? And then I ask you a question. How many of you in this room have seen raw cut diamond in your lifetime so far? Raw cut diamond. Okay. How many of you have eaten fish this week? Aha, we always beat them, right? So fish is more valuable. So that's chapter 1 of the book, just to whet your appetite. There's a lot. The book is mainly set up, it's all about values and valuation. What we value matters, and how we value things matters. So that sets the stage, and then all the story unfolds that way. So let me see, what do I have next? I try to reduce to make sure we have time to have a discussion. So when you look at the work I've done, colleagues, and this thing, there is something that I think we need to do to sustain our ocean, our nature, our biodiversity, and therefore sustain people. And the whole idea is that to get to infinity fish from vanishing fish, as Daniel described it, we should abandon the notion that we have to take everything, everywhere, all at once. You know where this came from? You've seen the movie, 7 Academy Awards. I was watching it, and I said, oh my God, for nature, it must be the opposite. It should be not everything, not everywhere, not all at once if we want to save the ocean, right? We can't just take everything just because we can, right? So that is another point I will tell you a bit more on this as we go. So what do I mean by all of this? So let's take the not all at once first. It's about intergenerational equity. I don't think the current generation has the right to take all the fish and leave nothing, or somebody say, why do you care? Maybe future generations would like to eat jellyfish. I said, so you take the cod, the tuna, the salmon, and leave them jellyfish? How about you give them the option to choose, right? Why take them all? So this is about intergenerational equity. And when you look at it, this is a quote that actually motivated some of this way. I'm going to talk quickly about, including the First Nations of North America, who have this idea that they plan their relationship with nature for the 7th generation. So it's a 7th generation thinking. It's not a quarterly thinking, right? So that I got inspiration from it. And Nietzsche, of all people, my European friends say, this is not somebody to quote on everything, right? But I think he got this one right. You know, this is the beauty of science. You can pick one nugget and throw the rest away. It's okay. So he says that egoism is a law of perspective as it applies to feelings, according to which what is closest to us appears to be large and weighty, right? While size and weight decreases with our distance from things. This is the human being, right? And you cannot argue with him, frankly speaking. Today, now, this moment, this room is the most important space for all of us in here. This is where we are, right? So it makes sense. I'm not arguing about that. And that is what economists actually use to say we have to discount flows of benefit, right? Because if you are going to get $100 in 10 years versus $100 today, most of us will want our $10 today if we can get it, rather than wait 10 years to get your $100, right? Is there anyone who wouldn't prefer that in this room? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense, right? So that's the whole idea. But the consequences of this can be really what we see, the vanishing fish and taking everything now. You know, we did a model of the Canadian cod stocks, the collapse. And when we did the analysis, actually for the fishes, that was the best thing, to empty the ocean. They make more dollars, right? But clearly, that will not leave anything for future Canadians. So that's the whole idea. I turn into ideas and papers we publish and apply to a number of places. These are the initial papers, you know, that we publish. And actually, this crazy, this paper, the ecological economics one, actually got me into the White House to give a presentation on this. And when I say that, people think it's the Obama White House. No, it's Bush, W. Actually, they got me in there to talk about this, you know. So there are applications in the book that I wouldn't be able to show you, but this figure I just want to show. So let's say you have an ecosystem that you know is depleted, and you are thinking of restoring, rebuilding, and you do economic analysis. Whether to rebuild, that is, you pull back some of your capacity for 25 years, allow the fish to come back, you get higher harvest, versus continue fishing and depleting, vanishing fish, versus building. That's what you see. That's the harvest profile, how much you catch over time, over a 100-year horizon. If you do the conventional economics, you will never restore. That's what you see, the first two bars. Not restoring is better than restoring. But if we use our approach, which explicitly takes into account the value of fish to our children and grandchildren, so you value their fish as their fish, not as my fish, right? 50 years from now, where will I be? Fish is not useful to me, but for the granddaughter, obviously, it's useful. That's what the conventional approach doesn't take into account. So when you do that, then clearly restoration is good, because you are not only thinking about yourself, thinking about 7th generation like indigenous people do. So that is one thing. Based on this, not everything all at once. All right? So let's see, what else we have? Now, not everything now. Let's take that. And this is about biodiversity justice, the way I formulate it. And here I have just 2 slides, but I think there are clear messages. So the first slide is fishing in the deep sea and the high sea for animals that some of us call orphans of the ocean. Because the high seas is actually not any country's waters. It's beyond 200 nautical miles. You have regional fisheries management organizations trying their best to manage it. But actually, if you have fish that live all your life in the high seas, there is actually no real authority managing what is going on, right? Because the RFMOs don't have teeth. They can do some gentle agreements, and people agree. You can walk out and still fish there. So what this thing says is that The fish that really live all their life in the high sea are usually very delicate. They live very long. They grow very slowly. If you insist on fishing them, they become like diamond, not forever, right? So what our analysis saying, just leave those fish alone. And they are not much. It's less than 1% of total global catch is this species. Most of the fish in the high seas is tuna that go in and out anyway. So don't fish offense of the ocean, and some of them live long. I just learned about Greenland shark, a species of Greenland shark, when I was in Monaco last week or so. That fish lives 400 years on average. So 100 years. Some of them have names like people. Mr. Alfonsino, that's a fish. Alfonsino, that's how they are. And so what I say is that anything that can live as long as your grandma and grandpa, please leave them alone. Yeah, don't eat. Why do you want to eat? They live as long as grandma and grandpa. So that's the kind of species. We got to be selective. You can't just eat anything. Come on. That's why we have brains, right? You can choose to leave some things alone. And that's one here that I think. Then the next thing is actually deep sea mining, which has become very topical. We recently got a paper published in MPJ Ocean Sustainability where we look at the cost benefit for different actors, those who were in the session I was in earlier, I talk about the we. We talk about we, but we have to go into this we. So in this paper, we say, if you are South Africa, that already has a big mining thing, and these guys bring more minerals on the market, how does it look for you, right? Because the price, everything being equal, is going to go down. If you are Palau or any of the, I think it's Tonga, or is it, one of them is eager to go in there. How does the economic work for you? If you're a private company, so we did different things, and that is a paper that just came out. Overall, our conclusion is that given the economics, we don't see any reason why you should actually fish in the deep sea, mine the deep sea, because there are enough minerals on land to do this. People say, oh, we need it for energy transition. Engineers have told us that this is really not necessary, and the distraction is unbelievable. And we don't have enough knowledge anyway. So for now, let's leave it alone, all right? Now, I go to the last part. Not everywhere. Biodiversity, economic and climate, social justice, all together. Isn't that cool if we can do that? And this is about our whole ocean. We have one ocean, the global ocean. The light blue areas are the country waters, EEZs, 200 nautical miles from your coast into the ocean. The dark blue are the high seas, areas beyond natural jurisdiction. And there are 2/3 of the water, the surface of the ocean, and 1/2 of the global, the surface of the earth. This is really big. And we take about 4 to 5%, 4 to 8% of the total global catch from there, mostly tuna, that spend their time in and out. So what our analysis shows that, because what you do in the high seas can have impact on the tuna in your waters, you rather be careful about that, right? So we did analysis. Fortunately, not only our group at UBC, this is a UBC work. We try to say how much of the fish we catch is fish that live all their life in country waters, fish that live some of their life in the high seas and in country waters, and all their life in the high seas, the offense of the ocean. That's why you cannot see less than 1% of the. So we can leave them alone and actually be okay, because we'll catch the fish when they come in there. And so these are the papers. Not only our group, Chris Costello and his group did some bioeconomic modeling, University of Santa Barbara. They came to similar. They say we'll make more money actually, more catch, similar to what we are seeing. So just imagine this is your ocean, right? So you close the high seas, turn it into a fish bank for the world. That's how we formulated it. A fish bank for the world, where the fish can go have peace, do well, be happy. They become a lot there, and you know what animals do when they are crowded? They just jump into your boat. Yeah. Why waste all this energy? They will come. Just leave them alone, right? So that is the little animation there. So again, oh gosh, Rashid is messing up now. Yeah. So but you get the point, right? So they go that way. You have more fish, and this thing is very important. 4 things happen just by doing this. Number one, the biodiversity will be richer. You leave the offense of the ocean alone. The tuners get a break. They come. You catch them cheaply, so the economics is good, and you don't have to search through tests of the ocean to catch only 5%. So you help carbon's release, right? And therefore climate change. And then at the moment, only about 8 countries fish there. The big fishing nations, China, Spain, and Korea. If you close the high seas, Guinea-Bissau, Bangladesh, smaller countries will also get. This is where the social justice comes. You improve the distribution of the benefit from the high seas 100% if you calculate the Gini coefficient like we did. So currently, the Gini coefficient for the distribution of benefit from the high seas is that of South Africa, which is the lowest, the widest distribution of income. And if you close the high seas, you get that of Sweden, which is the closest, right? Who doesn't want that, huh? So small countries where food is really needed, they will get to catch the fish too. There's a social dimension to this. So let's see what. So not everything, not everywhere, not all at once. That is my main message here. We need to use our brain. You know, my grandfather used to tell us when we were young and playing soccer, hitting all over. He said, "You guys, why are you doing just because you can hit the ground and do all this?" He said, "You should walk on earth as if it feels pain." And this has come back to me in terms of environmentalism and actually also how we did. Anyone who can walk on earth as if it feels pain will know how to relate to nature and to people, actually. Don't you think so? That's a powerful statement. So let's all do that. I think if he was a coastal guy, he would say, paddle your canoe as if the ocean feels pain, something like that. A metaphor for all we do on the ocean. So what do? If we do get the valuation right and fix all this, then we'll be able to deal with these things. I'm getting close so my colleagues can come on board and make this more interesting. And then the climate change part. We will be able to really think hard about how to deal with climate change. Reduce it so that it impacts life in the ocean, the biophysics, and our fisheries less, and also deal with the fishing. Some of us believe there's double the capacity we need to catch the fish sustainably, which means double the CO2 the fishing sector is pumping up, which has consequences. So Beck is here with one of her programs with our fish. She says that, you know why she says? Stopping overfishing is also climate action. Isn't that beautiful? Because if you stop it, then the fish are in a better position to deal with the impacts of climate change. So that is that. And then this research we did on the economic consequences. The deep red places are going to lose a lot of catches and revenue. And they're around the equator where people need the food the most. And where people actually contribute less to climate change also. This is another graph we have in the paper. So if we deal with climate change, people in Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Cambodia will get more fish to eat rather than Iceland and Norway and Canada, where we have options, right? We have so much options. See my belly, you know. I need to reduce eating, right? Or maybe jog like my friend here more. So this tells a whole story, the ethical part of climate change and how those who suffer are not those who actually pollute much per capita, at least. So, and then that's the fishing thing, fishing down, habitat, truncation, all weakens the fish. It's almost like when COVID came, if you have preconditions, what happens? And you are hit, you suffer. So if you overfish the stock, you destroy part of their habitat, and they get hit by climate change, ocean acidification, bang, there you go. So stopping overfishing is actually also climate action. Thank you so much for your attention. And what else? Oh, the pavilion. So that's the quick summary. There are 17 chapters, and maybe we'll get into them. There is an example in chapter 17 where we and the First Nations of British Columbia developed a simple valuation thing to take into account the things they care about. And when we did use that to value salmon, the value was 9.5 times the market value of salmon. So the valuation is important. And thank you so much for your attention.
So you should take a chair, and then we'll bring William and Rebecca up as well to join us here. I can sit here. And so we're first going to ask Rebecca and then William to offer a few comments and reflections before we get into Q&A.
Thank you. It's always a hard act to follow after Rashid. Anybody feel the pressure here? Oh, yes. Such an informed and yet entertaining and speaker and communicator. So yeah, I guess I just want to touch on a couple of points that Rashid mentioned. Obviously, the value of fish being more than diamonds, and just to, I guess, highlight, as you did there towards the end as well, Rashid, that the importance and the value of fish is not just as food, even though that is obviously incredibly significant for a lot of communities and for a large number of people around the world, but the value of fish within the ocean ecosystems and within my favourite topic, the ocean biological pump, and the importance of fish and those different species to ensuring that that pump, which is responsible for drawing down energy and carbon dioxide and sequestering it away, that having healthy, thriving populations of fish is key to that. It's not just a physical and chemical reaction that's going on there. So I think that that's only reinforces your message that fish are extremely valuable. And I think in terms of restoration of fish populations, I mean, just tying into that, I know that, of course, we've obviously already been overfishing, and you've really demonstrated that, and Daniel's fishing down the food web. But I was really interested in, hopefully, maybe William will talk about this, the fact that, as we move forward with the increasing impacts of climate, actually, where before we might have fished, if there's any fish nerds in the audience, fished at maximum sustainable yield, like the level that we believe the fish populations can continue to maintain themselves and into the future as a sustainable level, as climate change increasingly impacts things, that baseline of maximum sustainable yield is going to become less and less effective. And so we really need to restore those populations for those populations to be able to maintain themselves. So we're not just kind of trying to keep something at a level anymore. We're trying to stop it from going down. So that investment, I think, is really key. And I guess the other thing, there's just so many gems, obviously. Because now I'm the director of the High Seas Alliance and no longer with AFRIFISH, just to talk about, I guess, about the importance of the high seas. And Rashid's proposal to close the high seas to fishing, obviously there's some really amazing benefits to that, and economically as well. At the High Seas Alliance, we don't advocate for closing the high seas to fishing, but we do advocate for the creation of marine protected areas, which have, demonstrably shown that protecting areas from fishing, protecting areas that are breeding or feeding zones, vulnerable areas or unique ecosystems is incredibly powerful and incredibly important. And we haven't had the ability to do that before. The BBNJ, or the High Seas Treaty, was agreed, and hopefully now that it's been adopted and the race for ratification is on and it'll enter into force in a couple of years, we'll actually start to see large-scale marine protected areas proposed that can effectively stop fishing in the high seas and create that fish bank. And I think just off the back of that, just the equity issue, just want to reinforce and touch on both the intergenerational equity, but also global equity, right? I think that's really, and you feel it here at the climate COP because, as you said, you know, the most impacted people are the ones that have least caused the problem. And similarly with fisheries, some of our richest fisheries, you know, there's the people who really rely on fish as a protein and are impacted by that flow of the productivity of fisheries in and out of the EEZs into the area beyond national jurisdiction. They haven't caused the problem, but they suffer from the impacts. So just to highlight that, I think that's a key area, and hopefully the High Seas Treaty and can help to increase the ambition, as we were talking the other day, about the regional fisheries management organisations and their you know, their capacity, willingness to better manage and restore our fisheries.
Thank you. William.
Thanks. Yes, I agree with you. It's very difficult to follow the after Rashid and also you too. I'm William Chung. I'm a director and professor at the Institute for the Oceans and Fisheries at the University of British Columbia. So I'm colleagues with Rashid, have been working with Rashid for over a decade. I'm a marine ecologist by training, so it's really good learning experience for me to work with Rashid to learn about the economics and things like that. And one of the things that I learned for the first time myself is about discount rate. And I think this is kind of the core elements that relates to the infinity fish, right? And the fact that I think that we discount a lot of the future benefits that really make people think that lost that perceptions about the long-term benefits of fish and the environment and biodiversity. And so I think what Rashid highlights is that we need to bring back that elements of long-term thinking. And also stop thinking about the near-term benefits. It is embedded in a lot of the climate discussion that we are having now too. The long-term more benefits that justify the cost that the investment that we need to now to solve climate change. I think this is the same for fish as well. And some of the things that Rashid and I are doing in our projects about future thinking, thinking about positive futures with Laura and colleagues in our projects really help us to visualize what a positive future with lots of fish would be like. And that would, we hope that that would also help us to kind of, put more focus on the longer term futures, reducing the discount rate that people often put on fish now that kind of really blind up from realizing the infinity fish benefits that Rashid is highlighting. And also, I think another thing that, I mean, as Rashid said, his book is about not doing everything, not everywhere, not at the same time. But I think it can also flip in the other side. What he is also highlighting is that we need to do everything that we can to save the fish. We need to do it everywhere. So it needs actions everywhere. And we also need it now. We need it like all the time because we are really at the stage where the fish and fisheries and biodiversity are facing multiple threats. We should highlight that at the beginning of his talk. Climate change, overfishing, habitat destruction, pollutions, and invasive species. Those are already known impacts on our ecosystems in the oceans. And we also know that there are many actions that we can take now. I mean, Beck mentioned about that. Rashid certainly highlighted that in his book and his talk. We know that marine protected areas is one of the solution options that also already have solid evidence that it helped to build up biomass of fish that would benefit fisheries and biodiversity, and also good fisheries management. we also need to know that we need this now with the climate lens. They need to be climate adaptive. So when we manage our fisheries, we need to also realize that the managements need to consider climate change in order for it to be effective, and that's something Beck highlighted. And we also know that we need to put in, for example, a lens that some of this management really needs to focus on those who are most impacted. So we should highlight that the impacts are not felt equally by all the people. Many groups of people are particularly vulnerable. For example, globally, with climate change, our work showed that people in low-income countries, in trouble countries, they're most vulnerable to the changes in fish abundance and distributions, and those are also the people who are most dependent on the fish as well. Like nutritionally, for example, we just published a paper last month that shows that with the climate change, particularly with a higher level of warming, low-income countries are set to lose more than 30% of their essential micronutrients because of the decrease in fish. So what it means, again, is that we need to do everything that we can. High sea protected area is just one of the actions, but then we need fisheries management as well as climate actions. And we need to do it everywhere, and we need to do it now. So thanks very much.
So thank you both. I want to go a little deeper, both figuratively as well as literally, into this biological pump question. Because I think we've focused a lot on, obviously, the value of fish as food. That's the traditional way that we've focused on them. And Rebecca, you talked about the biological pump. We had a session in here a few days ago about the mesopelagic species, the twilight zone species, the most numerous vertebrate species on the planet, and some work that has emerged through Woods Hole and Scripps, and EDF has been involved, that's beginning to recognize that these fish are providing a carbon service that is, orders of magnitude above what we understood before. The mesopelagic fish, the most numerous vertebrate species on the planet, the bristlemouth. Is that factoring into your thinking, Rebecca, in respect to the value of the high seas? And for Rashid, how do you as an economist think about recognizing the role of those fish? Because, right, these fish have not been fished. But as fish meal sources begin to come in under greater pressure traditionally, there's one of the things we highlighted in the session the other day was increasingly, industry looking to these fish as a fish meal source, which could further dig a hole into our planet's biological pump. And I just ask you both Rebecca, to react substantively to that suggestion. Rashid and William, if you want to join in as well, react sort of economically to how we could think differently about that. And then I'm going to come to the audience for questions.
Thanks. That's okay. Yeah, I think it's a really important point, and I did write down mesopelagics, but I didn't say anything. Yeah, I think with the mesopelagics, exactly, we're understanding how absolutely critical they are to that process in the biological pump of drawing down the carbon. Key points of they haven't been fished before. I'm very interested to hear if Rashid and from William if they have economically valued them, but traditionally we haven't, right? And I just want to tell a small anecdote. I was last year, I think it was, in a workshop that I was invited to. It was a kind of international research project. It was called MESO, and they were looking into the potential for causing or creating impacts from a mesopelagic fishery and what the potential ramifications could be. And it was quite a small workshop, went for 3 hours. I was like, I'll just go in, I'll maybe duck out after half an hour. I really can't do this 3-hour Zoom workshop. And I got into the workshop and there was about 25 people. Half of them were scientists, maybe less. Half of them were scientists, and about the other 30% were industry people who obviously had a financial interest and want to exploit this fishery. And then I think I was the only conservation representative on the workshop, and I was like, oh God, I can't leave. I'm here for 3 hours. And we went into this interesting conversation, and one of the guys from the industry said, oh, there's potential for social benefits from this fishery. And I was like, and, you know, we're in this analysis thing and we're doing some mapping process online, which I don't know how to do. And I said, hang on, can we just actually question this foundational statement? Because what social benefit is being gained or could be gained from fishing the mesopelagics, as you've just pointed out? Actually, the only reason they're considering fishing mesopelagics is because the industry has done a terrible job of managing the small pelagic fishery, which is what they've used to exploit to create fish feed for farmed fish. And so, one, it's coming from not a great place, and that's obviously had its own flow-on effects for national and coastal communities as well already. But to claim that then, you know, you might have social benefits from fishing mesopelagics, the mesopelagics, what individual is going to eat a mesopelagic fish? I mean, really, the African communities whose fish were taken by the other large industrial fishing companies before to feed the other farmed fish. So anyway, you can see I'm fairly passionate about this issue and really just like think that we need to obviously analyse these things. They haven't been analysed, they haven't been valued, and we need to do that. And I think I also, just flowing on from that, organised a workshop with the ICES, the International Council for the Exploration of the Sea in Europe, and we started looking at a project that Rashid and William and I worked on, the climate impacts from fishing, as opposed to what's the impacts of climate on fishing, what are the climate impacts of fishing, and it considers these kinds of things. So what's the impact of taking out all this carbon? And they, as much as they're very, very cautious scientists, said, we have enough information to say we should not start fishing mesopelagics. And I think that's a good place to be.
So, Rashid, quick reaction at the risk of starting your next book?
Yeah. You know, actually, in 2012, we published a paper. I spent the summer with Alex Rogers in Oxford, actually. And what we did was actually trying to value the carbon value of fish and life in the high seas. So we did for the Global Ocean Commission at the time. And our results, just to give you a headline, we found that the value of the carbon, the fish in the high seas sequester, is 10 times the value of the fish we take. So that's the magnitude you are talking about here.
And actually, can I just sort of stop you there?
Yeah,
and
please.
Say that the new research suggests that the fish are way more numerous than we understood in 2012. So it might be 100 times.
Exactly. No, that's great.
I don't know, William, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I think particularly I think a lot of those gaps in terms of, like, as Bex mentions on the fish can be met by the better utilizations of the fish. Like, for example, the paper that I mentioned that we published a couple of months ago in Nature Climate Change, that we look at the fish nutrient contributions. And we find that in recent years, there's a loss substantial of the fish nutrients actually are lost because of the goes to fish meal and fish oil productions. And those are small pelagic fish, which are very nutritious. So just by better utilizations of those loss or inefficient use of resources, it can help with reducing a lot of the climate impacts on the decrease in nutritional availability to many of the coastal communities. So I want to just put you on that point on that, and that I think the importance of recognizing the uncertainties associated with the biological pumps is also very important because a lot of the ideas about alterations of that biological pumps really rest on our better understanding of that, and without that we really don't know what would be effects, and thus I think it would be better to conserve those resources rather than thinking about how to use it.
Thank you. So let's take a couple of questions from the audience, if there are any, and then we'll get a couple of questions on the floor, and then we'll sort of react to them. So 1, 2, 3, and then we'll stop and react. Yes.
All right, thank you. And thank you to the speakers. That was excellent. My name is Brandon Gertz. I'm with the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative. And I had a question about the uncertainties associated with a concept like maximum sustainable yield. I'm not sure who coined the phrase, but I've heard it said that counting fish in the ocean is exactly the same as counting trees in a forest, except the trees are invisible and they move around. Well, yes, the fish. So that has, that of course has an impact, and then regulators can sometimes be prone to taking the most optimistic assessments of maximum sustainable yield and similar concepts. So I was wondering if you had thoughts on how we can improve that, whether it's an observational change that needs to be made, whether it's data, or whether there are other ways to account for that uncertainty so we don't get so many maybe overestimates of how much we can take.
Okay, so the MSY question. Let's get 3 questions on the floor. And then,
Hi,
oh
I'm
my gosh,
Priya.
you're
I'm a
awesome.
student pursuing my master's in agriculture, food, and environment. I really enjoyed the nuances of this panel. And my question is more on the demand for popular species, which are not only they are grown or rather produced in low-income communities, but also by low-income community labor force. And so, we're looking at both a social and an ecological imperative here. And with an increasing demand for popular species in developed countries, how do we see that dynamic sort of playing out, not to sort of shut down demand itself, but what are some alternatives? Would that mean we need to rely on aquaculture as a means or a solutions? Or do you think, and I feel like, it's not just a social imperative, but the social imperative and the environmental, motivation working together is critical as well. And so how does that play in with this whole conversation?
Okay, so we've got that question now too.
Thank you very much for your very inspiring speech. My name is Su Jie. I'm a project assistant professor at the University of Tokyo, and I also work for the WorldFish. And my question is, my research focuses on the small-scale aquaculture and the fisheries. And my question is, particularly in those low-income countries, as Professor Chen mentioned, they are particularly vulnerable to the reduced in the fish stock. And when we introduce some fish management practice, or say like fish management rules, their livelihoods, their food security, and their nutrition are being damaged in a certain way. So there are some, like for example, economic tools, like incentives that have been introduced to deal with this kind of situation. But sometimes it works. Sorry. Sometimes it didn't work very well. So my question is, do you have any thoughts on this, help these small-scale fisheries to transfer to sustainable fishing and to help them understand these kind of long-term benefits? Thank you.
Okay, we're going to stop there because we're just going to run out of time if we keep doing questions. So if you guys provide really concise answers or responses to these 3 questions and observations, we can go to 2 more. But I'm not optimistic.
Yeah. So maybe I will pick the MSY one. So we actually published a paper last year that looked at that aspect. I think is to have a more conservative rebuilding plan, fisheries management rebuilding plan, which allow us to be able to, particularly under the uncertainty of climate change that would affect fish stocks abundance, that would actually help with achieving the conservations as well as fisheries targets. So more conservations focus fisheries plan, rebuilding plan.
Thank you.
You go first.
I go first? Yeah. So there are two quick ones, maybe, and then you can add. Demand for popular fish, whether there's room for agriculture. I mean, you can deal with demand in a number of ways. You supply more of what people are demanding. That's agriculture, right? Bring more fish on board. Agriculture has a role, but it also has to be done wisely and carefully, right? We talk about fish meal, we talk about fish escapees, and so on. In fact, we got a paper published, was it last year? The years go so fast, I think 2022. And the title is Aquaculture Over Optimism. Because I gave a talk about sustainable fisheries, and somebody said, why do you care? We can farm all the fish we need in one high-rise building in Holland, he told me. I said, wow, that high-rise must be very high. Will it give you all the inputs? Will it eat all the waste? So we have to do that wisely. That's on the supply. On the demand side, I think Daniel Pauli has been mentioned earlier. He says maybe we in the West who have so many alternatives, we should eat fish as if it is medicine. You take it once a while, not to eat it every day. So those who don't have options can have the fish to eat. So that's something to think about, people in this room. That's the demand side. Economic incentives, you are very right. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Context is important. There's one group in BC. They call themselves the Young. They call themselves the Young Fishermen's Association. And I say, no, it should be Young Fishers Association, right? So we're arguing on that once a while. But then I like them a lot because they do small-scale fishing intelligently. It's smart. In fact, they organize, they bring accountants, financial people, biologists, people like to just, they care about nature and they know they need to sustain it in order to continue getting their benefit, infinity fish. So that is the kind of thinking, hopefully, if we can spread, let the fishers really take good care of their thing and maybe we'll get to a better place.
Actually, just building on both of your responses and answering a couple of questions, I think we have the thing about fisheries is we actually have a lot of the solutions and the tools, right? We just don't apply them. But one of the things which I think applies to all three questions is that we need to do better at measuring and monitoring all the parameters. So ecosystem values, fish populations, social benefits, employment, incorporating how much has been subsidised or not. So, there's many values and we can have more of an ecosystem-based fisheries management system if governments kind of put in a bit of effort to have a more nuanced approach, I think, and value those different elements. I haven't read your last chapter, but I feel like they would do that.
And technology, to the gentleman there with MSY, technology could help. I had a question. I was in California, and the tech people were in the room. They said, so how can we help you guys? You're trying so hard. I said, you know what? Create an app that counts the fish for us. Yeah? Just count the fish. And then if they can do Uber, I think they can do that, right? So, yeah, that's technology has a role, I think. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sorry that we're probably not going to be able to get to any more questions because we have like 1 minute left, and I've been on a couple of sessions in here, and they keep us on a tight schedule. But we have lots of lobby area, and hopefully maybe some of our Rashid and our panelists can as we move outside, take questions or individually. I want to thank the panelists for all of your great observations. This has been really fascinating. Oh. Okay. Oh my gosh, now we precluded some participants. Okay. So how are you going to decide who won the book, Rashid? Huh?
Who will read the book? I should have come with a bite.
Yeah, you should have. See, and that's why I started with that first question. I thought maybe I could qualify.
All right. So.
No.
Oh, was that why you took this seat? Yes. All right, there you go. You're close. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Big round of applause for